there guys, it's Salis, and today I have the pleasure of announcing to the YouTuberverse, Bayonetta 2. I'm bad at this. If there has ever been a reason for me to say this, this game is it. So here goes. Buy a Wii U. This game is amazing, but when I first opened my package I was a little concerned for the reasons shown on screen. Bayonetta 1, 18 certificate. Bayonetta 2, 16 certificate. So I thought, either the folks at Peggy have gone really soft, or, and this was the far more likely, this is going to be tame, isn't it? And it was, but only by comparison to what came before. And please note, I've had to make more cuts than ever in editing the background footage, because I wanted to show only the bare bones of this game because there's so much to it and it's too much fun just to watch. Bayonetta 2 looks absolutely breathtaking, and despite running only 720p on the world's first 1080p console, it's just as fantastic to behold as its predecessor, even more so given the upgrades made to Bayonetta herself. And thank God they changed her hair. She still doesn't look like a person, or at least not the kind of person that wouldn't snap in half trying to tie their shoes, but at least she's no longer got the hair equivalent of a traffic cone anymore. In fact, overall, there have been a lot of improvements to models in general. Hair now seems like hair, less like putty and more like actual fibres, and characters now move more fluidly than before. Even if the console can't keep up with that at some times, which I won't deny did give me some cheeky entertainment in the brief but glorious moments when Bayonetta's costume textures didn't load in properly after a summoning move. But characters aren't the only things that have been improved. Environments are also vastly improved, with far more variety and detail put into each one. From the streets of New York to the depths of hell, the choices made in environment design here were superb. Enemy design follows in that same line. They are still complicated and weird looking as they ever were, but dialed up to 11. There are always those little floating bastards, but then there are giant centaur looking, armoured to shit lance wielding guys who can and will wreck shit up if you don't keep your eyes open. But where this, I suppose we can say franchise now, has always excelled in terms of enemy design, is making enemies too big to fit on any screen that isn't IMAX. To be honest, if I was the one in charge of designing the heads on these guys, I would have given up 1 week in, but that's just me. There was one choice regarding enemy design that did puzzle me though, and that's the bosses. In previous games, you literally destroyed a planet, or to quote a much better reviewer than me, Yahtzee Crowshaw, this is the sort of game where bosses can be the size of the moon and have 11 health bars. But in the sequel, bosses are all slightly piss weak, with a few exceptions. Most bosses are roughly only slightly bigger than our heroes. In fact, some of the normal enemies that get trotted out over and over again are bigger than them. There was this one massive guy who would have made a fun fight, and how did you deal with him? Wait till he falls off a bridge. Well, that's a design wasted. But there are many more types of enemies than ever before, and each design template is unique. Complicated and beautiful, but that's just the new stuff. I'm not going to spoil it, but you do revisit the village where the first game was set, and it's nice to see these old designs reworked and enhanced to keep in line with the rest of the game. Some would call it lazy and working from a cheat sheet, but not only did they rework it, they added new areas to the village and a whole new set of set pieces which will amaze even the most cynical man on earth. I'm living proof. The sounds in Bayonetta 2 are as exactly as you would imagine. The sound effects are pitch perfect, from the guns to the roar of a panther and the various cries of the enemies. And when I say cries, I'm not on about the old yell or anything like that. Some of the angels you fight sound like crying babies when hit, which is kind of appropriate given the fact that their weak spots are often the faces, and the faces do look like those of children. The voice cast returns with their hilarious array of forced British accents. Bayonetta still sounds like Mary Poppins, who's been hitting the gin, and the new character added sounds like a posh Cockney chimney sweep, so I suppose they do complement each other well in a weird sort of way. The voices of the angels and demons are still slow and with just enough reverb applied to give the impression that they are much bigger than you, even if they do speak in ancient, and you have to look at the subtitles to get the point of what they're trying to say. Now, those sound like complaints, but they are not. This is a glorious celebration of well-chosen voice acting. The Bayonetta games have always kind of had their tongue in their cheek, never taken themselves too seriously. Although, Given that they're directed by the same guy who did Devil May Cry, I don't think they would know how to if they tried. And this is one of those situations whereby serious gritty realism in the voice cast would have felt awkward, given the subject matter, and it's always more entertaining when the voice acting gives the impression that the actors were enjoying the job. Music has always played a pivotal role in the Bayonetta games, from the sequence featured in the demo, where you're on a jet fighting off waves of angels to the sounds of a remix version of Moon River, to the up-tempo music used in the fight scenes and action set pieces. The first example above is proof of the game's tongue-in-cheek nature, because there's a certain joy to be found in the juxtaposition of such a beautiful and gentle song being played over a furious battle between a witch and a horde of blood-hungry angels. Okay, spoiler alert here, although if this makes sense to any of you, please let me know, I will send you a coconuts. So, the game takes place immediately after the events of Bayonetta 1, so I suppose it's a good job the special edition comes with a HD remake of Bayonetta 1. After Bayonetta, who by the way is a witch, although in this world the word witch and stripper are a little loosely defined if you know what I mean, and the witches were at war with a group of sages, and she offed the last sage in the last game, which caused havoc for the world in the form of natural disasters, and because the witch clan holds the left eye of God and the sages hold the right eye, but with no sages there's no right eye or something, so there's no balance, but that's not the main concern for Bayonetta right now. She's shopping in New York with her BFF or sister or wife, who knows, and angels attack the city, so they spring into action. Her missus saves her life by sacrificing her own and gets sent to hell, because where else would witches go? But her demon friend and weaponsmith, who also runs a bar, reminds her that a witch isn't dead until a demon's eaten her soul or some shit. Are you confused yet? So, Bayonetta heads to a magic mountain where no one can go without dying or disappearing, to find the gates of hell, because this is where God used to live, I think. But she gets to hell with the help of a child who has white dreadlocks and a weird forehead tattoo, who can manipulate the fabric of reality because of reasons. But after that she finds a sage who I'm pretty sure is the same guy we killed in the last game, and starts working with him to kill God, because it wouldn't be a Japanese game if we didn't have to kill God at some point. And they're only doing this to stop him taking the eyes back, but he does that anyway. And then they show him that humans are better than God or something, but then the sage, who it turns out to be Bayonetta's dad, has to absorb God to stop him being reborn and starting it all over again, so he kind of becomes half-evil God, maybe? The story has more twists and turns than the cables behind my TV, and it is moment-to-moment excitement and wall-to-wall fun, made even better by a script that knows exactly where it needs to be serious and where it needs to be funny. It's much in the same vein as the original, being both confusing and complicated, but uses simple ideas to build the complexity. And if you don't own a Wii U, find a friend who does, and who has the game, and play it at the very least. If not, buy the game, buy a Wii U, I've told you before. Because this story is worth experiencing firsthand, and I don't think I've done even half of it justice there. Gameplay is where this game absolutely kicks the ass of every other spectacle fighter I have played recently. It's fast, very fast, smooth and brutal at the same time. Just as before, it's mostly a button-mashing angel slaughter game with more combos than KFC, which it still lets you practice in the loading screens. But before we get onto the combat, I would like to point out a choice which improves the flow and pacing of the game 100-fold. The game has an infinite sprint in the form of Bayonetta's transforming herself into a panther and running on all fours. This helps break up the gaps between the combat arenas, and it doesn't mean lengthy downtime. And now the thing I'm most excited to talk about is the combat. The combat in Bayonetta is what determines your final rating at the end of each level. And it's not just based on how quickly you send those creatures back to their maker, it's also about style and finesse. The game rewards skillful dodging to avoid the heavy hitters, but also it activates Witch Time, a purple-tinted bullet time, if you will, which has its duration based on how late you leave your dodge. For example, if you dodge at the very last second, you get the most bullet time available. But it also pays to hit the various combos, hence why the loading screen practice is such a good and pragmatic idea. So, if you want those platinum or pure platinum trophies, you best get learning. The combat also features Bayonetta's trademark torture moves, but unlike the original, where these torture moves would make fans of 50 Shades of Grey blush, in the sequel they're more along the lines of medieval torture. Yeah, since Nintendo claimed ownership of this, the BDSM was predictably the first thing to go, so instead, now we have meat grinders, Iron Maidens, guillotines, and just bashing people about. But strangely, it didn't stop them including the climax moves, where Bayonetta summons up powerful monsters woven from her own pubes, so who knows? Okay, word of advice, people. If you're going to play this game, and I recommend you do, get a Pro Controller. Because I've tried playing this with the Wii U gamepad, or as I now call it, and I expect everyone else to call it, the Fat Controller, and not because of the size, but because it runs about as long as the Fat Kid on Sports Day. Which, even though it does have its uses in the form of either allowing touchscreen play, although I didn't use that because it seemed inaccurate and clunky, or allowing you to keep playing when you don't have access to your big TV. But it has the battery life of a fucking mayfly, which resulted in me needing to keep it plugged into the AC at all times. It's wireless for a reason, you know. Gone are the days of being tethered to the console a few inches from the screen playing Mario. Wait, bad example. Gone are the days of being tethered to the console a few inches from the screen playing Sonic. Crap! Bad example again. Okay. Gone are the days of being tethered to the console a few inches from the screen and playing a good Sonic game. Much better. But apparently, this is a trend not entirely agreed upon by the folks at Nintendo. Bayonetta 2 has a surprising amount of replay value. Since the game is designed to be played multiple times to find all the secrets, unlock all the difficulty settings and extras, but it also has online multiplayer, which I haven't tested because I was probably the only person who sat down with a bottle of vodka and beat the entire story on launch day for the purposes of writing this review. And also because spectacle fighters with a strong story and epic action like this don't need multiplayer to prop themselves up on like some kind of crutch. So, in conclusion, Bayonetta 2 is probably the most fun I've had with my Wii U in some time. Its fast-paced action and wonderful design mesh together beautifully against a well-paced and well-crafted story, and despite the limitations of the Fat Controller, it has wonderfully responsive controls, and this may well become my game of the year, unless something literally knocks my socks off before the end of the year. So if you ever needed a reason to buy a Wii U, this is that reason. But I can say, it could have done with being a launch title for the Wii U. They would have flown off shelves. And you all saw this coming. I am giving Bayonetta 2 my first 10 out of 10 of 2014. So, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, favourite and subscribe. And I'm going to go and play more Bayonetta 2. So, I've been Salis, I'm going back to the Wii U, and I will see you next time.